Today, it's specifically the charges that allegations that have been made against the Munguias.
You just mentioned getting rid of 4 charges against me
No,
because
no.
the one will outweigh the 4.
I was suggesting that be an approach that the board consider. The board doesn't have to do that. Yes, Sydney?
I just want to ask why the protocol for the meeting's being decided now. You sent us the letter regarding the possibility of revoking our privileges on November 1st, which was 29 days ago.
Right.
Why are you just now coming up with some procedure by which to handle it?
Because I just was made known of what options would be and what would be appropriate at 6 o'clock tonight by Victor Schaub. This is an informal hearing, and I really don't see a need to go into a huge amount of detail and pre-planning for discussing how we're going to proceed with the items under discussion.
What makes it informal?
Because
You're talking about taking our privileges away forever. That's a formal
It's not
thought.
casual, Roland.
That's a
I mean,
formal thought.
Well, Roland,
Rodney?
Well, as Roland pointed out, nobody's under oath. There's no attorneys performing any, cross-examinations. There's no court stenographer. So that does definitely reduce the degree of formality.
It's a valid question, though, Rodney, in that, procedure, protocol is used every day. It's used whenever supposedly your organization meets under Robert's Rules of Order. It's not something that, requires a lot of pre-planning per se, but it does require some thought. And my question is, why are you waiting until now to determine what that protocol is? It certainly has some bearing in terms of how we prepared for being here tonight, not knowing what the protocol would be, not knowing basically, what we should bring and how we should present it. I just feel that it's just inappropriate, to wait till tonight to decide a protocol on something that you call casual, but we consider very important. These are our producer's privileges that you're, intending to revoke here.
The tape will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't ever remember the word being used casual except for by you folks. But nevertheless, it is the prerogative of any board or governing body to start off a meeting, and if they decide there's one serious charge versus some lesser charges, to simply, for the process of the meeting and for clarity, to disregard the lesser and look at a more serious charge. It is the opinion of the board chair that one charge is more serious and substantive by far than the other 4. So it is reasonable and appropriate for him to put it forth to the board to consider. It would be inappropriate for us to bring new charges that you aren't prepared for, but you are prepared to face all the charges that the board chair has alleged in writing. And so you're only going to be answering to allegations that have already been raised in writing. So this board can determine exactly what we're going to
Well, I have to address the other 4 anyway. So are you
Right.
saying only I will be addressing them?
That's what the board would be discussing. What I'm proposing is that consideration for revoking Doug's producer privileges be based on one violation, which is harassment.
So then you're dismissing the other 4 charges against him, is that what
No,
you're
the
proposing?
board is choosing not to enforce them against him.
Yeah, but the problem here, Roland, is your decision-making throughout the whole month should be looked at, because what you've done is inappropriate in every direction. So for me to put aside the 4 charges for the board, is putting aside, looking at how you take care of business and how Amerman takes care of business.
Right.
That's very important here.
So then you're dismissing the other 4 charges against him, is that what
No,
you're
the
proposing?
board is choosing not to enforce them against him.
Yeah, but the problem here, Roland, is your decision-making throughout the whole month should be looked at, because what you've done is inappropriate in every direction. So for me to put aside the 4 charges for the board, is putting aside, looking at how you take care of business and how Amerman takes care of business.
Right.
That's very important here.
Essentially, you're putting aside our defense.
No. Doug still has to defend against the harassment charge.
No, our defense against the charges, all of the charges. You're basically brushing them aside.
No, because Doug is only being considered for harassment. There's no allegation that you have
Not
harassed.
Not
yet.
according to what you've led us to believe until we arrived here tonight.
In my memorandum of November 18th, I cite specifically Doug is a person who is engaging.
You
in
did not
harassment.
say in that letter that you were dismissing all of the other charges.
No, I'm not. And I'm not dismissing the charges. I'm asking the board, what would you prefer to do?
I would prefer to review whatever evidence there is, as it may be, and determine at that time who it applies to.
Okay, fine.
That's me.
Other ideas?
I have no problem with dealing with the harassment charge first.
Okay.
I could feel it was significant.
Michael?
I'd like to thank you for letting the board set the agenda, and I would prefer to address the harassment charge first also, and then the other 4 charges after.
I think we should limit each topic, should have a limit of time.
Okay.
As to a limit of time, how long do we have? If we plan on going to 9, do you want to?
We can stay
split?
here as long as we want, so we can put, once the evidence has been presented by me on behalf of the board, the defendants can take 15 minutes or 20 minutes for each specific point. So, we just need to decide if we want to set a time and what that would be.
10 minutes for 9 points, presuming they would each defend themselves.
Right.
Which could be a tactic. With 10 minutes for 9 points, presuming they would each defend themselves.
Right.
Which could be a tactic, would be 90 minutes right there.
Okay.
So use the math.
Okay. Doug?
You should allow us as much time as it takes to present information and evidence. For this is our last day at ACAT. You can't say, my kids are waiting, we can't hear
I'm
the
sorry,
rest
but
of that.
I do have priority in my
No, but I
family.
mean, you hear what I'm
Well,
saying?
then arrange
You know,
daycare or a babysitter, or leave.
Well, then I'll leave.
And go
If that's
home.
necessary, that's what I'll have to do. I'm just presenting that I would like to be here. If we can deal with it within a time frame, I will stay. But if not, I will have to leave. I would prefer to be here.
I prefer to set a time limit, half an hour for the first harassment charge, and 15 minutes for each of the other 4. I prefer to set a time limit, half an hour for the first harassment charge, and 15 minutes for each of the other 4.
Is that agreeable to everyone? There's another proposal.
Okay, what's the math on that? That's 30.
That's 90 minutes.
That's 90 minutes, okay.
Are all 4 charges created equal in terms of their weight, in terms of the amount of
Yes.
evidence
And-
we have to present to defend ourselves? That is not the case. There are some of those charges in which there is a greater amount of evidence, and some where there is a lesser amount.
I suppose.
Why don't we
could-
just be reasonable human beings and address the issues in the time it takes to address them?
Another approach could be to allow an hour on the floor instead of segmenting it into 15 minutes. What would the board like to do? Does that sound good?
Yes,
I
that
agree.
sounds good.
Okay, well, let's begin. It was brought to my attention after the November 4th board meeting that Doug allegedly was aggressive with Station Manager Rob Amerman with his camcorder and his language and his physical movements. And 4 directors told me that they saw this. So I'd like each of the directors who did see it to, in a nutshell, explain what they observed. In a nutshell, explain what they observed.
I see you want to give Mr. Amerman more power as time goes on, and obviously, he's getting paid more money. First, I wanted to say, this executive committee and all these decisions that are being made by 3 individuals on this board, having mostly to do with paying out more money and changing major policies, is probably not a good idea. The board is here to vote on things as a 9-member board. You can talk in your executive committees about changes, But I would recommend that it involve all 9 board members.